الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. It's the night of Friday, the night of Jumu'ah, and we are in the month of Sha'ban, and the month of Sha'ban is right before the month of Ramadan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and He's the creator of the places and the times, and He chooses whatever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He said subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ مَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ. That your Lord يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ, He creates whatever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيَخْتَارُ, and He chooses whatever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ, there's no khiyara for them, there's no choice for the creation of Allah. They are creation, they are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're all in state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is meant by this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. He created whatever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created the way things are and the time and what is virtue and what is not. He chose subhanahu wa ta'ala for Mecca to be the most virtue of all places. He chose Mecca and Al-Medina. He chose Baytul Maqdis to be a masjid where the believers are commanded to make shadd al-rihal, to travel to pray in it. It's one of the three masajid, Al-Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, Al-Masjid of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and Al-Masjid al-Aqsa till the Day of Judgment. And He also subhanahu wa ta'ala chose a month, which is the month of Ramadan, that is to be repeated every year. And it's a virtuous month, and in it the Muslims, they fulfill one of the pillars of Islam, which is fasting. And it's a month where the gates of Jannah are opened and the gates of the hellfire are closed, and the shayateen, the devils, are chained. And in the first night of Ramadan, there's a caller that calls, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, he would say, Ya baghi al-khayri aqbil, wa ya baghi al-sharri aqsir. O seeker of good, come forward. This is your time to get the best you can. And ya baghi al-shar, O seeker of evil, aqsir, I mean go away. So this is with regards to the month of Ramadan and more. And that's why as part of our deen, whenever something is very virtue and there's rewards in it, you would find something before it also as a preparation for it. The believers would do certain acts of worship. Like before the salah, Salatul Fard, you would have sunnah prayer, and after the salah you have sunnah prayer, you have adhkar that is associated with the ibadah. And the same thing with the month of Ramadan. As the ulama, they mentioned, and one of them is Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, he mentioned that the month of Sha'ban to Ramadan is like when you pray the sunnah before the fard salah. Something that should not be missed, and it prepares you for the obligation. And the obligation being the most rewardable in rewards, this is the most rewardable act, the obligations. And these are principles in the deen of Allah, as in the hadith al-Qudsi, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ. That my servant would not ever be able to get closer to me except with what I made it an obligation upon them first. So the first and the most important thing is the obligations. And no one, if someone prays all night and all day, but he misses one obligatory prayer, as if he done nothing. So the obligations have to be done first. And since the obligations is the most important and it's the most rewardable one, and it has to be exalted in the hearts of the believers, as a way to exalt it and as a way to achieve the best of the rewards in it, you need to prepare yourself before it. Because the obligation is not just to do it physically, which is another aspect of things. The ibadah that we do, Salatul Isha that we did, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. We say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, because we can never fulfill the rights of the salah the way it ought to be. And the Prophet ﷺ used to end the salah when he makes salam by al-istighfar, saying astaghfirullah, 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 and then the adhkar. Because the right upon us from the salah is a huge right that we need to fulfill. If it's about the physical action, it's easy. It's easy to do the physical action. It's easy to stand and make ruku' and make sujood. Everybody can do this. And it's not about the physical actions, it's about the physical actions and about the state of the heart. So the ikhlas, the sincerity, the khushu', the devotion, which is one of the first things that would be lifted from the ummah, not enlarged, but as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said that أول ما تفقد الأمة الخشوع, the first thing that will be missed is al-khushu'. This is the first thing to be lost. And he said يوشك أن تدخل المسجد الجامع ولا تجد فيه خاشعا, that very soon that you would enter a masjid, a big masjid, and you won't find a khasha' or someone having khushu' in it. You don't see the khushu'. You cannot say this person has khushu'. You can say that that person does not have khushu', but you cannot say that a person has khushu'. You understand what is meant? Because it's in the heart. And as a rule also, if we do something something bad, something that is against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us physically, that's a sign that the heart having some corruption in it. So if someone is standing in the salah, scratching and looking left and right and things like this, definitely we say he's not khasha'. He does not have khushu'. We did not open his heart to see, but this is a clear sign that the heart is distracted. But if someone looks like he is having khushu', there's no such a thing. Yes, a person physically looking at the position of the sujood, which is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and standing in the salah, the right and the left in the salah, and standing with the proper manners and etiquettes and looking at the position of the sujood. But is the heart in state of khushu'? Allah knows best. Allah knows what's in the heart. Because the physical action, again, to look like a person is focusing in the salah, this is easy. But the heart is owned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the rewards of the salah, some people get 1/9, 1/8, 1/7, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And as Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, it's because of the khushu'. How much of the salah the person has, the khushu', and it's all by Allah. It's a gift from Allah. It's tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's an effort that a person needs to struggle with himself to achieve al-khushu'. We have to struggle within our own selves to have these actions done by our heart. We cannot leave it like that for our desires. So if this is the true in the salah, it's the same thing for any ibadah, for any obligation. You want to get the best of the reward of it by having the state of the heart in such a purity and such a devotion, and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is established in the heart, the khawf, the fear of Allah, the hope for the rewards from Allah. And as heard before many times, these are the three pillars, as the ulama they say, for the ibadah to be in the heart. The three pillars of al-ibadat al-qalbiyya. The three pillars of the ibadat, acts of worship done by the heart. What are they? Mahabbatullah, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fear of Allah, the hope for the rewards from Allah. These three things has to be there every time we make ibadah. So its effort needs to be done. And that's why we have things before we do the ibadah that we have to be busy with. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. Shaitan gets us all the time. Like before the salah we make wudu, you leave the house, you leave the place that you're sitting comfortably, you're going to the masjid, you're trying to focus on what you're doing. When you're going to the masjid, you say adhkar, you prepare yourself, you come early, not like myself coming late in the last rak'ah. You come early to the masjid, you pray sunnah, you sit, make dua, you read Quran. All of that is rewardable acts. But part of this, it's the objective of it is for the obligatory salah to be done in the most perfect way. Many people overlook this. This is part of the struggle and al-mujahada to achieve the best rewards in the obligations, because the obligations, nothing is like it whatsoever. And since we have to agree upon this, that nothing is like the obligations, but we belittle them sometimes because it's easy. We think it's which is the case. The obligations are easy, meaning everybody can do it. Everybody can do the obligations, that's why there's no excuse. And if a person is not able to stand, he sits. If he's not able, then to lay down. And it's very easy, it's very simple. It's only 17 rak'ah a day. And this is the obligation. But the struggle that needs to be done with one's heart It's still in the capacity of each and every one of us, but there's no physical challenges. It's all something that we have to work on ourselves to bring in our hearts the love of Allah, the fear of Allah, the hope for the rewards from Allah, and the khushu' and the devotion and the ibadah. And we have to take the means of this. And that's why in the month of Sha'ban, the Salafus Salih, the early generations of Islam, used to give so much importance to this month of Sha'ban. Not from their own thinking or their own reason, but it's from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned the month of Sha'ban, or it's mentioned in some of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and you probably heard many of them. It's important in these types of situations that we remind ourselves of what's mentioned as a text in the Quran and the Sunnah with regards to the days, regards to the months, regards to the place that we're in, so that we're always connected to the Shara', to the Deen of Allah. So one of which is in Muslim Imam Ahmad and others in this authentic hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was asked, why does he fast in the month of Sha'ban more than any other month other than Ramadan? He would never ﷺ complete an entire month in fasting other than Ramadan. This is the obligation. Other than Ramadan, the most of the months of the year that he would fast in is in the month of Sha'ban. So when he was asked ﷺ about this, he said for two reasons why he would do this. The first thing, it's a month, شهر يغفل فيه الناس بين رجب ورمضان. It's a month where people are يغفل الناس, that means people are overlooking it, they're heedless, they're forgetful of the importance of this month because it's between Rajab and Ramadan. Rajab is a sacred month from Al-Ashhur Al-Hurum, so there's importance to it. And there is the month of Ramadan. And amazing is that those who are having this ghafla, or this forgetfulness, are those who are righteous and religious. Because who would exalt the month of Rajab? The believers. Because they know that the reward is multiplied in the month of Rajab, and the sins are multiplied. So they give attention to the month of Rajab. And then the month of Ramadan is the best of all months, of course, and in it is Laylatul Qadr and so on. So then the month of Sha'ban in between, so they might overlook it. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ would make the ibadah in this month, which shows a concept in the deen of Allah that if you are in a time or in a place where you find people are in ghafla, they're not in that state of devotion or worshipping Allah or making dhikr. The ibadah, the dhikr that you would do in such an environment, the reward of it is multiplied by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you don't find helpers. It's easy to find people to help you to make the ibadah, which is a good thing. But when you find yourself at times, which we witness these times, you don't find much help in a place, in a time of the day. People are busy, for example, or in the market, or people where the hearts are diverted and distracted. There's nothing wrong with a person going about with his necessity in his life. But the times and the places where there's ghafla or forgetfulness, the rewards of making ibadah at these times or these places is the reward is multiplied. And that's one of the reasons the Prophet ﷺ would fast in the month of Sha'ban. And the second thing he said, وَذَلِكَ شَهْرٌ تُرْفَعُ فِيهِ الْأَعْمَالُ إِلَى اللَّهِ فَأُحِبُّ أَنْ يُرْفَعَ عَمَلِي وَأَنَا صَائِمٌ. He said ﷺ, this is a month where the deeds are turfa, ascended to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I love for my deed to be presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while I'm fasting. So there are things happening in this month. And the raf' al-a'mal, or the a'mal, or the deeds of each and every one of us get ascended to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month. This is the yearly a'mal, the yearly deeds. Because it also, the deeds every day and night, the deeds, they go up. And the angels, يَتَعَقَبُونَ عَلَيْكُمْ مَلَائِكَةٌ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. The angels, they take turns on you every day and every morning, every day and night, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the authentic hadith, and then they get together in Fajr and Asr. They meet, the angels of the day and the angels of the night. The angels of the day, they stay from Fajr to Asr, and the angels of the night, they go up with the deeds. So this is a daily thing. And there is the weekly rafa of al-a'mal in Mondays and Thursdays, and there's the yearly one. So things are happening, and these deeds are not something to be belittled. And al-a'mal, or deeds, we are nothing but a'mal. Our bodies, when we die, and a person goes to the grave, what's left is the actions, is our actions, and speech and actions. When we say actions, it includes what we say also. Every word we say, ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. He does not utter a word unless the two angels, they're recording everything. And the hypocrites, they would say, لولا يعذبنا الله بما نقول. The hypocrites, one of their signs, they belittle what they say. They say, would Allah punish us because of what we say? This is how they belittle the commands of Allah. And we were going through Surah Al-Mujadala, and in it is al-dhihar. Al-dhihar is when a man would make a statement that he forbids his wife on him. He would say that his wife is haram on him. And it's a word of mouth. If he says this, his wife is forbidden for him unless he makes a kafara. And the kafara is what? That he has to free a slave, as the ayat in Surah Al-Mujadala. And if he doesn't find a slave, because there's no slaves nowadays, for example, and this is the perfection of the deen of Allah, it did not say free a slave and then you figure it out. There used to be slaves in that time. But the deen is till the day of judgment. And that's why the ayat would say, فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ, whoever doesn't find, then فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَتَمَسَّ. To fast 2 consecutive months before the spouses, they touch even each other. Has to be done. Why? Because of a word of mouth that he said. And if a person is not able to, if he's not having the capacity to fast 2 months, then to feed 60 poor people before they can get together. So it's a very serious matter. Just a word. He got angry and he said something. That's why people get married with a word of mouth. And the divorce happens by a word of mouth. Even if a person is joking. ثلاث جدهن جد وهزلهن جد. 3 things. If its seriousness is serious, and it's al-hazl is when someone is playing or being joking, it's serious. If a husband says to his wife jokingly, and he make it a very explicit statement, he would say to his wife that she is divorced. She is divorced. Even if he's just laughing and joking. It occurs and it counts as a divorce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high. And as we know that the intentions are so important in our deen, unless a person is insane or something else, that's a different situation. But it shows that this is meant to be this way. One of the benefit of it is that we are not just given the mouth and the tongue and the ability to speak, which makes us unique, different than the animals and the rest of the creation of Allah, to just abuse it and to just keep on going like this. No, we have to make sure that this is ibadah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this. Allamahu al-bayan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the human beings al-bayan, the ability to articulate yourself. The ability to express and to explain about what in maknoon inside of you, what's hidden in you. This is a great ni'mah from Allah. A child is not able to do that, right? And when they cry, you don't know if they're happy or what they want or things of that nature. But so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the human being the ability to speak, there's a heavy responsibility for it. To make sure that we say what is good and to stay away from what is evil. And if we're not sure, we're silent. As the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawm al-akhir falyakul khayran aw liyasmut. Whoever believes in Allah, and see how the statement is, whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him say khayran, let him say good, or to be silent. Not that just speak and then we'll figure it out later. No, either you have to make a decision first, and you have to think, is that a good thing for me to say or not? Even if it's to the closest person to you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. That's why those who are the closest to us, they see the worst of us, right? Because there's no formalities. So that's why they have you have a right upon them, and they have a right upon you. One of which is a common right, that you have a right upon your spouse, that they forgive and pardon, because they're seeing the worst of you. So you find yourself talking and saying all kinds of things. So let them overlook. And that's why you would find in many of the texts, which is the most important thing of husn al-khuluq or good manners, is at-taghaful. Let it go, which is al-ghafla. Taghaful, overlook. Don't be critical to every word is being said. You won't be able to live together if you're just critical to every word that is being said. Yeah, they're wrong, but that's the worst state that he's in. So you have to overlook. And at the same time, you have a right upon them that they would only say what is good or they're silent. Right? So it goes both ways. So if they slip, then you overlook and you advise them. And people should, subhanAllah, if you imagine that husbands and wife are helping each other to be righteous and to complete their iman. وَتَعَوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, to help each other with matters of righteousness and the taqwa of Allah. One of which is not to fight with each other. Why did you say this to me? What do you mean by this? You have the concern towards one another. Say khayran or be silent. What do you mean to be silent? Then becomes the beginning of a fight. No, this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and if he doesn't, overlook and things like this. So the speech is part of our actions, good deeds, bad deeds, and the amal. All of that is presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is some serious matters in the month of Sha'ban. And one last thing, even though there are so many, which is with regards to fasting and how that important that the Prophet ﷺ would love for his deeds to be presented to Allah when he's fasting. That means the state of that the person is in while the deeds are presented, whether it's for things to be forgiven, for the multiplication of the rewards. And one last thing is, and I took too long here, is that they used to call the month of Sha'ban the early generations of Islam. We always say we want to follow them, we need to follow their ways, which is there's no goodness in this ummah unless we follow the way of as-salaf as-salih, the early generations of Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us. And again and over again, this is not a group. This is not a group with an amir. This is not some people that they claim that they're upon this and none else are upon that. It's what is obligatory upon every single Muslim. So follow the way of the early generations of Islam. So they used to, the early generations of Islam, they used to call the month of Sha'ban, they used to call it Shahrul Qurra, the month of Al-Qurra, the reciters of the Quran. Because Ramadan is the month of the Quran and so much recitation of the Quran, so it doesn't start with the first night of Ramadan. How much Quran you would recite in Ramadan? No, you start in Sha'ban. They used to start even before Sha'ban, the entire year. But the more you get closer to Ramadan, the more that we will open the Mus'haf and learn and read and to get ourselves used to this, so that when the month of Ramadan enters, the person is already in his norm of reciting Quran and fasting and fixing our salah and our Jumu'ah prayer and the night of Jumu'ah and the day of Jumu'ah and the adhkar to be said and the salah on the Prophet ﷺ. And all of that can never be done unless a person is really seeking help from Allah. We cannot do anything except by the help of Allah, whether it's our ibadah, to be saved from all kinds of harm is all from Allah. We don't need any help from anyone. Our heart should be upon this. A Muslim, his heart, if he knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his names and attributes, he does not seek help from anyone but Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all. And what a person attains from Allah is through the obedience of Allah. لا ينال ما عند الله إلا بطاعته. No one can attain what's with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except by the obedience of Allah. So if the obedience of Allah is not there, that means there's no connection there. That means if you seek help from every single human being on the face of earth, what can they do for you? Nothing whatsoever. They will increase you in misery. And this is the way of Allah. This is the rule that is applied on this ummah. Unless it turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And one of which is to be victorious upon our own selves and our own weaknesses by being steadfast upon the deen of Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who are steadfast upon the deen of Allah, and to make us among those who witness the month of Ramadan, and to help us and to guide us to do what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم وجزاكم الله خير.